there, and thank you for joining me for this live reading of The Reluctant Suitor by Stacy-Deanne, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Clear Creek County, California, 1895. With double vision, her heart thrashing against her chest and her body crumbling from fear, 24-year-old Billie Jean Wills held on to Sugar's reins as the horse galloped across the vast land, chasing whatever creature had spooked the golden mare. Each second felt as long as a year as Billie Jean tried to grasp even the tiniest breath. She couldn't see, and her heart banged in her ears like a drum. She waved and kicked, praying to the gods she held so dearly that Sugar would at least get tired. But as they passed through more of the forest, the horse didn't let up. She kept running, bucking, and howling, and Billie Jean lost her grip on the reins, and before her mind could comprehend it, she was flying into the air, finally able to scream while flinging her arms wildly. Her life passed before her eyes, and she begged God that it was too soon for her to go, and she surely didn't want to die like this. But before she fell to the ground and broke every bone in her body, two giant, gloved hands grabbed onto her waist and forced her upon another running horse. With her hair flying in her face and still fighting for breath, Billie Jean held on to two robust arms covered in luxurious silk sleeves. He maneuvered her to where she sat in front of him, holding her underneath her bouncing bosom. "Are you okay?" The stranger's voice remained calm, despite galloping on the horse. "Are you okay, miss?" "Yep." Billie Jean swallowed. Hold on." The man pulled on his reins and the gray horse stopped. "It's okay." He climbed off his horse and he was so strong he pulled her off at the same time. "Breathe." He set Billie Jean underneath the shade of the massive sequoia trees. "Talk to me." Billie Jean huffed and puffed, yet to concentrate on his face. "Here, hold my hand." He cradled her hand in his, and hers nearly disappeared because his was so much bigger. "Take a deep breath, in and out." He breathed along with her, smelling of luxurious silk and polished wool. Again. Slim with just the right amount of muscle, his thick leather brown hair sported the fashionable side part, the sides longer so the ends curled forward. He reminded her of the other rich white industrialists in Clear Creek County, clean-cut, chivalrous, and she craved to know thoughts behind his sizzling gray eyes, which stared upon her with the innocence of a child. "Well, I gotta say, you sure look good afraid." Even his obvious high-class ways didn't stop the lust in his eyes as he ogled her body. "I've never seen you before. Trust me, I'd remember it if I had." As her adrenaline settled, she remembered this was a white man and she a colored woman and snatched her hand from his. "Oh." Curiosity lingered on his downturned lips. "I apologize if I've made you uncomfortable." "No, sir." Billie Jean exhaled, straightened the lengthy skirt of her emerald green dress, her brown ankle-length boots drenched in dust like everything else in Clear Creek County. "I appreciate you helping me." "Oh God, Sugar!" Billie Jean jumped up and looked at the miles of greenery that surrounded them like a blanket, not seeing the horse anywhere. "She's gone. Shoot! That was one of my uncle's horses." She touched her head, surprised that her black curls were still secure in her updo. "He's gonna kill me." The stranger snatched off his glove and extended his hand. "Fisher Hines. And you are?" "Billie Jean Wills." She gave his warm hand a quick shake. "Nice to meet you, sir, and I can't thank you enough." "Don't worry about your horse," he winked with confidence. "I'll find her. She probably saw an animal that caught her attention." "Yes, sir." Billie Jean sat back in the grass, but Sugar was my responsibility, so I'd feel awful if I lost her. "Wills? You must be related to Greta Fay's people." "Oh, you know my cousin?" "I'm betting you won't find a lot around here who don't know her. She's quite famous." "You say that as if it's a bad thing." He shrugged, his golden cufflinks shining in the sun. "Just don't believe in stirring up trouble is all." "You think she's causing problems here, sir?" "What would you call it?" "I call it fighting for what's right, for our people." Billie Jean stuck her chin in the air. "I understand some disagree with the Negro fighting for their rights." "I have no problem with Negroes wanting all the rights they can get." Fisher grabbed a handful of grass. "But it's how she's going about it that troubles me." People would listen to her more if she wasn't so irrational. You mean if she stayed in her place, sir? He squinted, teasing her with a slight grin. Where are you from? Los Angeles, California, sir. Ah, he exploded in a hearty laugh. That explains it. I'm well aware of Los Angeles's ways, but things are different here, Billie Jean. You stay around here long enough, and you'll learn that real quick. Not that different, she smiled. People giving me all these warnings about how I should act here, but you just saved me and didn't even know me. Proof that some things are changing here. I'm just one man, he waved his finger. I wish everyone were like me, but I see that's a dream neither you or I will never live long enough to see. How long you been in town? About 5 days. She brushed a leaf from her skirt. Haven't been here since I was a kid. My parents and I would visit in the summers. Greta Fay and I used to have so much fun running around and cutting up. He grinned. So may I ask, sir, why did you save me? Because I saw a beautiful woman who needed help, and I was raised to be a gentleman. Because you're Negro, am I to feel differently? She dropped her head to catch her breath, because the way he looked at her made her feel naked. Tell me more about yourself, Miss Billie Jean Wills. Fisher stretched out his long legs, and she noticed how he didn't care that his fancy pants got dirty. How did you end up in Los Angeles? Family moved there from the South. Greta Fay's daddy, Archie, he's my daddy's older brother. He tilted his head. Do you like LA? Oh, yes, she clasped her hands. I've done so much there I wouldn't have been able to elsewhere. In fact, I'm on break from college. College? How impressive. Where? Chamber Hall, she sat up straight. It's a Negro college. It's not big and fancy like the white universities, but I've learned a lot and I'm grateful for it. He shook his head with an even brighter smile. I'm studying civil rights and social justice, she held in a smirk. I'm an activist for Negroes, and I'm writing a book on advancing Negro rights with the mentorship of my professor. Why, that's incredible, Billie Jean. How long are you staying in Clear Creek County? Until my school break is over in a month or so. She turned, glancing into the forest. Something drew me here, and I don't quite know the reason yet, but I feel I will. Fisher smiled. I'm sure you will, Miss Billie Jean. If you need a tour to get reacquainted with our little town, I'd be happy to show you around. She batted her eyes. Would that be appropriate, sir? I wouldn't care if it wasn't. She giggled. You're obviously rich. Are you related to the Bernsteins or Lockes? Neither. My family is very close with the Lockes, and we do business with them, but no blood relation. Contrary to popular belief, there are others in this town with money. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. She grabbed his hand. I didn't mean to imply that there weren't. Imply what you wish. He looked at her hand. If it means you'll touch me again. She pulled her hand away. You keep snapping back like that, and you're liable to break your arm, he guffawed. Relax, Miss Billie Jean. You're in excellent hands. That is, if you want me to show you around. She smiled as he gracefully got to his feet. Now, let me go find Sugar. Fisher strutted to his horse. I have to work tomorrow, but meet me by this tree in the morning as soon as the sun comes up. He mounted his horse, winking, and I'll show you whatever you want to see. Chapter 2. The help at Charlie Bernstein's mansion buzzed around like bees, dusting and getting the place ready for esteemed Mr. Victor Jackwell, her half-brother Charlie's childhood partner in crime. Yet Sue Ann Bernstein stood in the parlor with her eyes set on the giant liquor cabinet and the lock that prevented her from partaking in her obsession. It was her own fault for being arrogant, thinking she didn't need the liquor moved out of sight in order to risk temptation. It had been months since Sue Ann gave up her best friend, the bottle, and settled into a world of sobriety. She couldn't even believe it herself. During her counseling sessions with Pastor Taylor, he'd warned her that the battle would be one day at a time, but it was more one moment at a time, 1 second at a time, and Sue Ann never knew how she'd get through the day without at least one more taste. Sue Ann! Fiona Akers, their gorgeous Negro maid, rushed into the room in her long black maid's dress. Sue Ann, Charlie's back with Mr. Jackwell. Really, I don't get the big deal Charlie's making out of him. Sue Ann flicked her yellow ringlets off her shoulders, her head covered in satin blue bows that matched her dress. Charlie has us running around like the man's President Cleveland. He's just some banker from Sacramento. He's Charlie's closest friend, and he hasn't seen him in years. My point exactly. Sue-Ann waved her folding fan made with feathers and silk. If he's such a friend, why hasn't Charlie seen the man in God knows how long? All this trouble just so Charlie can impress? Fiona looked at the liquor cabinet. I think it's best if Charlie moved this to another room. No, leave it here. I have to prove I can fight temptation. I won't be a failure, Fiona. I won't. You're not a failure just because you want to drink. You've come a long way, and you should be proud of yourself. I'm drowning, Fiona. Don't you see whether or not the cabinet is in here? It's torture. Sue-Ann flounced across the room, her gown and petticoat sweeping the floor. Why not just give up the battle and stop fooling myself? If it's been this hard for only months, how can I expect a lifetime to get easier? Maybe it won't, Fiona approached her, but you don't have to do it alone. You have Charlie, Catherine, and me. She smiled, putting her arm around Sue-Ann's shoulders. I'm your friend now, remember? And my shoulders are big enough for your burden. Really? Sue-Ann smirked. I doubt that my head could fit on your shoulder with Charlie's face glued to your bosom. Sue-Ann, Fiona gasped. That's completely inappropriate. Ha ha, what you and Charlie do in every corner of this house is what's inappropriate. She pinched Fiona's nose. Come now, Fiona, how long are you and Charlie going to pretend? It's the secret that everyone knows. But I don't want anyone to think less of me. She dropped her head, rubbing her hands. We know it's not proper to be fornicating the way we do, but we love each other. In a perfect world, we could be together, but we have to take happiness where we can get it. Don't spill your soul to me like I'm the preacher gal. Sue-Ann stuck out her creamy bosom. I'm the last one to judge, but while you're giving me advice about making things easier for myself, I suggest you do the same. The head of the help, Miss Mildred, ran in. There you are, Sue-Ann. The skinny, long-necked white woman grabbed Sue-Ann's hand. Come now, Charlie and Mr. Jackwell are waiting. Miss Mildred! Sue-Ann held on for dear life as Mildred pulled her downstairs, much faster than you'd expect from a woman of her years, and dragged Sue-Ann to the parlor where her handsome older brother Charlie laughed it up with a tall, well-dressed man whose back faced the door. Ah, here she is. Charlie pulled Sue-Ann to him before she could gather her senses. Victor, this is my younger sister, Sue-Ann. Sue-Ann, this is Victor Jackwell of Sacramento, California. Sue-Ann froze when Victor turned around. Aromatic and regal with a wavy mustache and close-cut beard, he was a scrumptious man with a magnetism that poured from his skin like gravy. Miss Sue-Ann Bernstein? Victor's honey brown eyes lit up the room more than the sun peeking through the cotton lace curtains. It's my utmost pleasure to make your acquaintance. With his top hat tipping forward, Victor kissed Sue-Ann's hand, making each toe curl in her teal high-button shoes. Charlie's told me so much about you. Sue-Ann dropped her fan. Oh dear, Fiona got it. Here you go, Miss Sue-Ann. Are you all right? She faked a laugh, fanning her face. Of course I'm all right, dear brother. Please forgive me, Mr. Jackwell. It's nice to meet you too. She hadn't thought it possible, but his eyes sparkled even more. She wondered if anyone else noticed or only her. Come, Sue-Ann, sit down. Charlie escorted her to the rosewood couch, its cushions made of green velvet that matched nothing else in the room. There you go, little sister. Charlie's black curls glistened in the peeking sunlight. Victor, this is Fiona Akers. He flashed Fiona a huge smile. Fiona has been working with us for some months now, and she's been an absolute pleasure. I bet she has, Sue-Ann whispered. Victor kissed Fiona's hand as well. It's nice to meet you, Fiona, and I promise not to be too much of a bother during my stay. Oh no, Mr. Jackwell, she curtsied. It's my pleasure to assist you. Mr. Charlie has given me orders to make sure you have everything you need. I'm at your beck and call. Victor! Catherine Bernstein fluttered toward the bewitching houseguest, her short, stocky body tucked away in one of her finest dresses. It's so lovely to see you again. Catherine, Victor kissed both of her chubby cheeks. You look wonderful. She gripped his hand. How long has it been since you've been to Clear Creek County? Yes, Sue-Ann smiled, forcing everyone's attention on her. Exactly how long have you and my brother not seen each other? Let's see, I'm 37 now, Victor said. It's been at least 17 years, but we write each other often. Forgive me if I'm prying, Mr. Jackwell, but I don't see a ring. Sue-Ann switched her fan to the other hand. Are you not married? No, he looked at his gloved hand. I am not. For now, Charlie snickered. Perhaps that's why fate has put us together again, for me to help you find a wife. Oh, Charlie, Sue-Ann laughed. Maybe you should be married yourself before giving someone else tips. Charlie grimaced. Look who's talking, Sue-Ann. Victor raised his eyebrows. You're not married, Sue-Ann? Of course not, Charlie laughed, and now that you've gotten a taste of her biting wit, you see why. Sue-Ann rolled her eyes. I'm afraid Charlie nor Sue-Ann are married. Catherine pressed her wrinkled lips together. Leonard is probably turning around in his grave. His children producing heirs was very important to him. We're not dead yet, Catherine, Sue-Ann smiled. There is still time. Catherine, my deepest sympathies about Leonard's passing. Victor bowed to her. If there is anything I can do, let me know. I appreciate that, Victor, Catherine sighed. Sometimes I sit in these walls and I can hear his voice. I can feel him with me. It comforts me. I'll always remember Leonard's kindness, Victor said. He also gave me a lot of good advice on how to manage money. He's the reason I became an investment banker. That sounds very impressive, sir, Fiona said. Mr. Charlie has shared tales of your success in Sacramento. Yes, I've done okay for myself. The light vanished from Victor's eyes. I've definitely been blessed, and I have God to thank for that.